There will be question and answers at the end of the presentation. I'm going to ask that you come up to the podium to ask your question, just so your question is taped, and it could be something that provides more information to somebody at home once we post this up on the website. I'm assuming everybody has gotten their communication from Vital. They know what their new reassessments are, and you can ask some questions about that as well if you need to. So, without belaboring the point, we have our CFO, Jim Kraft, and our Borough Administrator, Joe Goucher, and they will be doing the presentation. So, sit back and enjoy.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I'll start with my next slide, which explains the change in our current fund expenditures. There's a change of $1,974,206. The breakdown of that is salaries and wages increased by $82,594. The changes in other expenses, you'll see a huge reduction in grants. That's because the prior year we did get the resiliency grant for over $2 million for flood mitigation. Statutory expenses such as pension went up $52,175. Special emergencies were paid off, so there's a reduction of $55,000 there. The biggest appropriation change, really, other than if you exclude the grants, is your change in debt service, and Jim will explain a little bit more as we get into the presentation on that. Also, over the last several years, we've been increasing the amount of capital outlay projects that we actually pay cash for instead of bonding, so that in future years, you'll start to see a reduction in your overall debt service for payments of bonds and interest on bonds. And there's an increase in the capital improvement fund down payments of $140,000, and then just general, all the other operating budgets, a total of $254,188 increase. So the net, like I said, is $1,974,206 reduction. Again, that's because of that huge grant that we had. Okay, the next is the changes in our current fund revenues. Again, that's the reduction of the $1.9 million. We are increasing the amount that we're using for surplus of $65,380. Increase in our local miscellaneous revenues of $75,808. Again, you see that decrease in the grants of over $3 million, and then other special items, $1,129. The biggest change is in our local tax levy, which is an increase of $967,500. Okay, I apologize. I know this slide's got a lot in it, so it's kind of hard to see. Okay, this shows you the 2% levy cap calculation, where the state requires that you cannot increase your levy by more than 2%. Basically, the bottom line is we are actually under the levy cap with our banking by $1,159,672. Okay, and status of spending in the caps. Again, on the appropriation side, there is a restriction of being able to increase your expenditures by 2.5%, or there's also a COLA inflation cost, and this year increase, which goes to 3.5, and we are actually under both of those caps. The 2.5 we're under by 519,000, and the 3.5% we're under by 621,000. Okay, your local tax levy and your assessed values. You can see the change in the amount we are requesting to raise in the tax levy. Last year it was $10,882,000. I see a typo there. In 2018 it's $11,850,000, increase of $967,500. The local rate at this point is the same at 24.5 cents. The assessed value increased due to the recent reval that was completed. We added 401,558,400, increase of 9% in our value. Okay, condition of surplus. Okay, as of the end of last year, our available surplus was a little over 2.6 million. We anticipated in our budget 1.4, almost 1.5 million. That left us 1.125. We were able to regenerate and begin this year with 2.8 million. And we were anticipating in our budget a little over 1.5 million, and that is leaving us a balance of 1,245,000. And this is an important thing that I want to bring out, especially this year, because we are going out for permanent financing for some of our bonds. And one of the things that the rating agencies will look at is the condition of your surplus and how much you're using every year. And we always try to stay at an acceptable range. And this year we are keeping a little bit more, so that will definitely help. Okay, surplus regeneration versus 2016 to 17 at year end. Pretty much I kind of what I went over in the prior slide, but it shows you that at the end of 2016 we had 2.6 million, and again at the end of this year we're at 2.8. Percentage used at 59% and 54%. And we always try to stay within 50 to 60%. Again, that gives you a positive rating with Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Okay, tax rates in Cape May County. This was as of last year. You can see we were 5th at 24.5. I think I mentioned this last year. We are actually second. If you look at the shore communities, we are the second lowest. And the overall tax rate, which is very significant, this takes your school and your county rates. In 2017, the borough of Stone Harbor had the lowest tax rate in Cape May County. So that's something that you should be proud of. Okay, percentage of tax collection. Last year, we collected 99.16%, and this year, again, we had an excellent collection rate, 99.13%. I believe we had one item that was scheduled for tax sale. It was a very small property, so that was insignificant. Current fund revenues, this just kind of gives you an idea. Obviously, you can see the bulk of the revenues are from your local tax levy to support your budget. Taking grants aside, the next biggest would be your local revenues, which would be like your permits for construction. Construction is pulled out separately. Your beach fees, tag fees, parking revenue would all be under the local revenue section. And this year we're anticipating $16,359,847. Okay, your appropriations. You can see here your salaries tend to be your highest, with all the other operating expenses next, and your debt service coming in fairly close. The grant you can see from last year was fairly high, but that was a one-shot deal on that. Okay, then going into the different areas. Administration and Finance, Karen Lane is the chair. We have Manchur Gallagher and Charles Kraftcheck serve on this committee. The total for admin and finance is up by $41,111. The other expenses is up $5,537, and most of that increase is in mayor and council OE, and that was for the nonprofit support to the American Legion, the Mammal Stranding Center, and Volunteers in Medicine. Almost all the other departments remain the same or decreased. And salaries are up by $35,574. And the most significant increase here is due to, we had one employee retire. We hired another individual who came on full-time, and actually part of that time is under code enforcement. So there was an increase for that. Okay. The functional areas in admin and finance, they include your council, administrator, municipal clerk's office, engineering and finance. Then you have tax administration, which includes the tax collection and tax assessment. You have your planning and zoning boards. You have legal services. You have the construction office. And then we have the insurance, which is your medical, your general liability, workers' comp, property, and vehicles coverage. And this slide's a little hard to see, but this kind of breaks it out, and you can see 58% of the budget under administration and finance is for your insurances. Then 23% is for admin, your tax is at 4%, legal services 5%, planning and zoning boards 3%, and construction office 7%. Okay, the next area is your public safety, and you have Ray Parzak as the chair, Jocelyn Rich and Manchur Gallagher are on the committee. The overall budget is up $180,907. Other expense line item is up $166,487. The municipal court, public defender, fire code official, and emergency management other expenses all remained flat. Aid to volunteer increased by $159,850, and this was due to an amendment to the stipend program that council approved last year. Salaries and wages are up by $14,420. Your dispatch interlocal agreement increased by $5,837, or 2%, and animal controls up slightly by $800. Okay, the functional areas. You have your police, you have fire, EMS, you have your municipal court, which includes your public defender and prosecutor, you have uniform fire code, you have Office of Emergency Management, fire hydrant service, your beach patrol and taggers, and animal control. And this just breaks down by percentage. You can see the bulk, 49% is police with additional 9% for dispatch. Animal controls at 1%. Beach patrols and taggers are 19%. Your fire hydrant service comes in less than 1%. And your municipal court public defenders, 5%, and fire department EMS is at 17%. Okay, next function area is Public Works. And it's Joan Kramer is the chair. Karen Lane and Ray Parzak are committee members. And the overall increase is $78,550. The operating budgets have an increase of $50,950. OE increased by $41,400, and the biggest increase was for uniform service contracts that we believe over time we will start to see an actual reduction in that overall budget by switching. And that is a contractual agreement with the union also. Solid waste, other expenses increased by $1,000. Buildings and grounds increased by $2,000, a little over $2,000 due to increases in service contracts and creating a line item for uniforms there. Safety compliance increased by 2,100. Landfill fees to the MUA increased by 4,400. Salary and wages increased by 27,600, or 1.8%, and that is contractual with the unions. Okay, functional areas, you have Department of Public Works, your labor pool, you have solid waste, you have buildings and grounds, special events, and safety compliance. You can see the labor pool is at 58% of the total expenses. Safety compliance was 2%, special events is 1%, buildings and grounds operations at 6%, and your solid waste, which includes your trash collection, is at 33%. Okay, your next area is natural resources, and this budget remained flat. Salaries of $25,000, which was moved from Public Works to Natural Resources 2 years ago to better reflect the expenses associated with the bird sanctuary and the point. Saw no increase, and again, other expenses remained flat at $61,000. And the chair is Jocelyn Rich, and Joan Kramer and Ray Parzik serve on this committee. Okay, the functions in this area are your beach and your dunes, your back bay, your bird sanctuary, and your Stone Harbor Point. And primarily, you can see here, it's basically the salaries are at 25 and your operating is at 61,000. Okay, your next is recreation and tourism. Manchura Gallagher is the chair. Jocelyn Rich and Charles Krafcheck are members of the committee. The overall budget increased by 5,200. Recreation OE increased by 200. Tourism remained flat, and overall salaries and wages increased by 5,000. The functional areas include recreation, tourism, and the operation at the marina. As you can see, 59% of the costs are for recreation services. Tourism comes in at 33%. Support of the museum is 6%, and the marina salaries and wages is at 2%. The museum was something that we did start last year with funding. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Jim Kraft.
Good morning. Debt service. Debt service is the annual principal and interest payments that we make. This year, the total is $4,096,559. As Jill mentioned in one of the first slides, that is up $460,000 from the prior year. And the difference is related to BAN interest. BAN is a one-year note, and BAN is short for bond anticipation note. It's a one-year instrument that we issue in anticipation of permanently going out to permanent financing. And I'll talk a little bit about that more in a second. But in 2016, the BAN was $9.443 million, and in 2017, in the fall, we issued one for $19.5 million, and that's the increase in the interest cost. We have three types of debt. We have general obligation loans, and in that, we have a 2006 issue, and the 2006 issue has $1.61 million outstanding at the end of 2017. It does mature this year, and we partially refunded that issue in 2016, and that saved us $84,324 in debt service over the last 3 years. And that refunding issue is also maturing in 2018. We also have a 2011 issue that has a $7.2 million outstanding at the end of 2017, and that matures in 2023, and the interest on that runs between 3 and a little over 3%. And we have looked at refinancing that, but it has not been feasible. We also have New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust loans. At the end of 2017, we had $3.8 million outstanding. Those notes, or bonds rather, are issued by NJEIT, and they fund water and sewer improvement projects throughout the borough. And some of that, sometimes there's a portion of that loan that they forgive the interest, And they also recently refinanced a portion of those bonds, which also saved us money, but I don't have that amount with me. And then then the rest of the financing is the bond anticipation notes of $19.5 million. Okay, next slide. Oh, the next slide, I'm sorry. Oh, you're on the next slide. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. I'm so confused. Okay. Debt is created by only one way. That's when the Borough Council passes a capital improvement ordinance. And in those ordinances, the state requires a minimum of 5% down payment. You can see a list of the projects in the budget that are anticipated to be funded by the debt. And the down payment is funded in the current fund on sheet 26 in a line captioned Capital Improvement Fund. We also list other projects under that section that are the cash projects that we are paying cash for in this year's budget instead of issuing bonds for. Once the capital project is passed by council, the project then moves to, it was accounted for in the general capital fund. We have two general capital funds, one for the current fund and one for the water sewer fund. Not all debt we authorize, or council authorizes, is issued, or financed rather, with serial bonds, NJEIT, or bands. Sometimes we just use financing or funds that we have in the current fund or surplus funds from other projects to temporarily fund those projects until such time that we need cash to fund the projects. And this year, as we mentioned, the 2006 issues are being matured, and we're going to replace that with a new issue in the fall of 2018. And can we go to the next slide? Yeah. And as you can see, the idea is to keep that service level throughout the years. So this chart goes back to the recent past and shows 2017 debt service in 2018, and in the future, and in the fall of the 2018 issue, will fill in the drop in the maturities of the two 2006 issues. And again, we'll repeat this process in 2023 when we have another drop in the debt service. Here is a partial list of the capital projects that are included in this year's budget. We have various road improvements of a little over $4 million, beach and bay improvements, each $50,000, and they're currently funded 100% with cash. A trash and recycling truck for $230,000. A bulkhead at 114th Street for $400,000, ADA improvements and restroom renovations for $400,000, beach tractor and loader for $160,000, police equipment, vehicle, computer for $92,000, building improvements at Borough Hall for $20,000, beach patrol equipment, which includes stands and building improvements, also for the tag office at $59,000, and various public works items and improvements for $199,000. The ones listed with an asterisk are all contemplated about paying cash for in this budget. Okay. Next is the water sewer fund. There's a brief summary of the water sewer fund. The budget is up 6.78%. There's an increase of other expense of $56,200 or 10.8%. The MUA fee, there's a decrease of $99,960. Debt service in that fund again increased $249,000, which is also due to bond anticipation notes. Statutory charges remain flat, and capital increased by $60,000, and I'll go into that a little bit further. Water sewer fund is responsible for the operation of the sanitary sewer pump stations, the water supply system, the maintenance of the pumps and the water system, the water tower, the wet wells, and the billing and the collection of the receipts. And there's a breakdown of the different revenue sources. Surplus, this year we're using $419,779 in surplus. That is more than last year's amount of $320,000. However, at the end of 2017, we had $950,000 in surplus compared to that of the end of 2016, we had a balance of $460,000. After the adoption of this year's budget, we will have a balance of $530,000 in surplus compared to $390,000 the year before. Water rents, this amount represents $1.7 million, which is just up slightly from last year. Sewer rents, the amount there is anticipated, shows $1.82 million, which is up $100,000 from the prior year. Miscellaneous is $250,000 as anticipated, up $60,000 from the prior year. And that amount includes everything except for rents, such as install fees, on-off fees, interest charges. And the total budget, as you can see, is $4.32 million, up $226,000 from the prior year. Current water sewer fund appropriations, the largest items, other expenses at $2.165 million. And of that, the county MUA is the largest item at $1.55 million. Other expenses are down from last year slightly, which was $2.2 million. Other expenses also includes chemicals, supplies, repairs, and electricity used. The next columns are debt. Debt is $1.5 million this year, again up $249,000 from last year, and it's band interest is driving that. In 2011, we will have a drop in debt service when we have an issue mature, and at that point, we will issue permanent financing to roll over the outstanding bands at that time. This year's capital fund is up $60,000 to $80,000, and the $60,000 includes paying for recurring capital for the first time in that fund instead of issuing debt for. And salaries remain the same as the prior year at $407,000. Some of the items that are capital items in this year's budget for water sewer fund is infrastructure improvements and road improvements, so $1.6 million. Meter and IRT upgrades for $200,000. Storm water vaults, pipe installation for $100,000. A sewer camera for $98,000 to video it. SCADA well and lift remote monitoring, $50,000. Outfall duct bill replacement for $30,000.
All right, that pretty much concludes the presentation on the budget as introduced. However, over the last couple weeks, I've had conversations with the mayor and members of council, and there was a little bit of concern with the fact that we have just done the reval, and there's big impact to a lot of property owners because their assessed values have increased. So we did go back into the budget to see if there was areas that we might be able to cut. And the next slide that I'm going to go to, we are recommending, and we feel that we can handle these reductions. They would total $242,000, which would equate to a half a cent. So instead of 24.5 cents, we are now recommending, and we would recommend after our public hearing on the 6th of March that we would introduce these amendments, and it would reduce it to 24 cents. What we've also done is Jim went in and took some sample properties and looked at where the properties were with their assessed value last year, where they are now, and compared to their old levy to our proposed levies, and a few other scenarios. So I'll turn that over, and I'll let Jim kind of give you a summary of what we're showing here on the next 3 slides.
Okay. The first slide, or the first column, is the assessed value in 2017 before the reassessment. The next column is the proposed assessment for those properties. And then the third column represents what the tax levy was in 2017. And then the column would be the proposed levy with this budget that was just discussed. And then, of course, the change in that. So these are just some sample properties. And then the second, well, not the second, I guess the second group of columns, which would be the 6th and 7th column, shows the 28 levy if we didn't do a reval in 2017. And that would be the change in taxes that each property would have. And then the last set as if we did not change the levy, but we did change the value, what would happen to certain properties. So certain properties would still see an increase in their tax levy, even if the borough did not have an increase in the tax levy for 2018. And certain properties would see a decrease. The next slide here is essentially the same thing, except it shows instead of the 2.45 cent tax rate, it's 2.4, and the half-cent reduction that Jill just spoke of. So again, we have certain properties will see a decrease in their levy from prior year. And then we have the second group is also the 28 levy with the 2017 value, and that's the tax rate on the top would be 2.67 cents. So again, that's if we didn't do a reval, that would be the tax rate and the levy. And then the last column is just the opposite of that. If we didn't increase the levy, but we just had an increase in the values. And then the last chart here is attempts to summarize all that. The comparison of the proposed 2.24.5 cent tax rate versus the new 24-cent tax rate, and the additional savings that each property will see by lowering the tax rate a half cent from the introduced budget. And that's a lot of information to get out there.
Okay, with that, I'd like to open it up. If anybody has any questions or concerns, we'll certainly be glad to answer them, or comments.
Lou Schweigart, 260 110th Street. With regard to your budget, you mentioned percentage increase, 6.78. I didn't see that in the others, like in administration, finance, and some of the others. It would be nice to know what the percent increase was. The budget looks very good, obviously, but I was just curious as to what the percent increase was as opposed to the actual dollar amount. For the water sewer fund? For the water sewer fund? Well,
No,
yours, I think, said 6.78,
Hold on, I'll get there.
which seemed a little bit high. And I was curious because I would think normally it might be 2 or 3%. But I didn't see anything with regard to percentage with the others. You said the total for administration and finance is up 41,000. Is that 1%, 2%, 3% from 2017?
Correct.
And I was just interested in that for all the others too. That's curiosity.
I think it's on this sheet here, right?
That's about the only way you can tell whether it's reasonable or not, is to give the percentage as opposed to the dollar amount, at least in my mind.
Gotcha.
So that might be something you might think about doing for the
Yeah.
presentation on the 6th of March.
Yeah, we do have those figures, so I can plug them in. Just make sure I'm looking at the right figure. Is that the overall increase? The overall budget itself is actually down 10.77%, but that's skewed because of the grant. So I think breaking it out per division will be more beneficial for you. So when you do see those slides, we can plug those figures in there. Okay? Absolutely. Any other questions, comments?
I'm not a municipal accountant, so bear with me a little bit, but is the increase in the assessed value that was in the Herald, is that an accurate number? 363 million?
I believe it's 401, right?
I guess I'm trying to
It's
get to
400, it's actually 401,558,000.
So that would translate, well, at 245 and maybe at 240, around $900,000 in increased
Correct,
revenue?
correct. 967.
I mean, can you say in a nutshell what happened to that 900,000?
Yeah, we have the revenue slide.
Okay.
Most of it is for debt service and capital.
Am I going the wrong way?
So normally,
Yeah.
maybe this would increase 2%
One more.
this year or something, right? And then, so what percent is
Am I
the
going the right way?
900,000 about?
Keep going.
Uh, Sorry.
Here?
No,
One more?
oh, this one.
Sorry.
So, that goes budget versus budget. So there's the decrease of almost 2 million in the actual budget. But what makes up that? We have an increase in using 65,000 more in surplus. Local revenues are up 75,000. The grants are down 3 million.
Right.
But you'll see the change in the tax rate is 9.67 million on there.
Right, but I think if you look at, where's my appropriations? The one for the debt that shows the debt.
I will be the one above that.
Above it,
Of the
sorry, I
revenue.
went the wrong way. Keep going the wrong way, I apologize. Okay, here. The bulk of that additional 900 and some thousand in revenue is going towards the increase in your debt service of 460,000, your 175,000 cash for capital projects, 140 for capital improvements. So the bulk of it is going towards your capital and debt service.
Yeah. All right. And just want to make one other point that I thought was a little misleading. We all got our letters and, with the new evaluation, and, the new evaluation, is only part of the equation, as we all know. There's a line, and you all know this, that's right underneath this. It says, do not apply the 217 tax rate to your new assessment. The new tax rate for 1918 will be different.
Correct.
Well, I guess it is now different by a half a cent, but, that's misleading, I think. I don't know.
Well, that is standard language that, that's okay, that's standard language that is put out throughout the entire state.
It's very misleading.
That tells you, what they want is they don't want you to look at your value and then figure that the tax rate from the prior year is exactly what you're going to be paying in the current year. So they're just trying to advise you of that, because they don't know what the rate's going to be.
I called these people, and they said, well, that they use this, and they said, your tax, you don't know what your tax is, he said. And that's true.
Correct,
But
when they sent
But
that, they
this
were,
sort of reads like, hey, because I have a very big jump in my assessment, close to 25%. And this makes it sound like, hey, wait a minute, don't do anything. And that's what they said when I called. Take it easy, don't worry.
oh, you mean
When
in terms of
When
just,
the .245 came out, that
It-
was a jolt.
yeah, I think you're referring to in terms of questioning the value that they put on your property, not to do anything about it? Is that what?
I mean, maybe I will now. I mean,
Yeah,
I'll have to compare it to other places and
yeah,
see.
which absolutely you should do, yeah.
I just want to point out, I think if it is standard language and.
Yeah, it is, because
because
what they're doing is they're sending out information in terms of the assessed value of your property. They're not dealing at all with what your tax rate would be. So their language is not going to be anything that tries to even estimate what your taxes would be. That's done by
Did
the,
the borough retain these people, or did the county?
they are contracted by the borough, yeah.
Okay, thank
And
you.
they're a company throughout the state, but like I said, every town would use that same type of language.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay, if you think of anything after this, please give me a call. We will have all this information and additional detailed information up on our website. We do have right now, I believe, the state's budget as introduced, our annual financial statement, our annual debt statement up there. Like I said, this presentation with more detailed information will be posted either Tuesday or Wednesday next week.
And Jill, we're still waiting on the county, right, for their rate? Because we still
Yeah.
have, this is just so everybody knows, this is just a local, we're waiting on the county, we're waiting.
And the schools.
Which is
Correct.
And what else? Open space is the 1%, so that's a standard 1%, so your open space tax will increase, and library remains the
Correct,
same.
right.
Remains the same, that the rate remains the same, so your library tax will go up. And we're waiting on the county, so.
Right. Okay. All right, thank you.